Uskuchen.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
We're twins today. We have on our library science shirts. Totally coincidence. And I think it was because Karen had to work an exhibit and I had to go to a meeting, and this was the most comfortable thing I could put on a Wednesday. So welcome back to Professors Providing Professional Development. We decided that we would do some more book talks this week because next week we have some time that we can put together some longer presentations on nonfiction. So know that that's coming really, really soon. So we have books that range all the way from picture books up to truly
YA.
Intense kind of YA.
Yes, yes.
So Karen, why don't you get us started with The Whale?
The Whale by Ethan Murrow and Vita Murrow. This is a black and white pencil-like sketch throughout the entire picture book. The illustrations in it are gorgeous all the way through. And for the most part, this is a wordless picture book. It starts out with two children, a boy and a girl who don't know each other, both see a newspaper story asking them to prove the existence of a giant whale, because 50 years prior to that, two kids had said that they saw a giant whale, and so they think, is it a giant whale or a giant hoax? And they want somebody to prove it. So each of these children independently decide to go and prove it. The boy is using audio recordings and trying to get sounds, while the girl is trying to gather picture evidence with photographs and binoculars, and so she's doing that. Well, they go on about their things. They're little inventors, and they are really doing well. They're both doing their own thing. They crash. Their boats that they're each in crash. They're stranded. They then have to find a way to then get back to land, and while they're doing that, what do you know? The whale shows up, helps them, gets them back to land, and then they are safe, along with gathering their evidence for proof, which then they are heralded as being the people that have actually done what nobody else could and proved that this whale is definitely in existence. And not just one, but there are a group of them. Mm-hmm. And then what do you know? It turns out that these two kids are the grandchildren of the two original spotters. So it really is a nice it comes to a nice circle again, because you are, I mean, how coincidental, of course, that it's the grandparents that found them first. So it's, and it uses some like, this is how you read the last page. And it's also how you read the very beginning page, the newspaper article. So I like that it uses multiple formats of text throughout the picture book as well. So it's not just text on a page. You're having to find out the information you need from reading the newspaper articles that is actually an illustration.
And I think textless books are perfect for working with kids early on in close reading, because it's a different kind of reading. Obviously, it's reading the pictures, reading the visual cues, because if a child doesn't notice that this first newspaper is from quite a while ago, then they won't have any clue when they get later on in the story what it is that has actually transpired.
And you know, and with textless picture books, see, look at these like facial expressions of the people, of the two kids in this story. That's a great way to get kids to then verbalize things that they're seeing in the illustrations, that then will then have them clue in other books how to pick up how the illustrations complement the text. So it's a great way for them to really be able to come up with their own words, because that's a really hard thing for kids to do sometimes, to describe what's going on in their own words. You ask kids to summarize a story or whatever, and it is so hard for them to do that. Wordless picture books force them to use their own words, and it's a great way to get them to feel comfortable with talking about books and using their own ideas.
And the words they use don't have to be in English, which is another reason that I like textless books.
That's very true.
I know that authors hear all the time, where do you get your ideas? And so Philip Stead is giving one answer in Ideas Are All Around. This is his latest picture book. I love how you can fold it out and you've got a wraparound cover going on here. Remember when we talked about picture books and some of the things we're looking at here, you see something falling out. And what's falling out is that there is a contest for ideas are all around that kids can enter. And if you're interested in that, then we can certainly give you the link to that. That's through the Stead collection. This is the story of a young person who needs to write a story and feels totally uninspired, and so goes out walking and notices all the things around, from the flowers to a sidewalk chalk art that says "Stop War," to a house where he used to live, to things around the neighborhood. And the text is very simple. It's plentiful, but it's very simple, and it's going to allow kids again to kind of fill in some blanks. You even have a textless double-page spread right here in the smack center of the book, where kids again can tell the story without us having to provide those things for them. And of course, it ends with, "I have to write a story, but I don't know what to write about, but ideas are all around." So, Philip Stead, wonderful book.
And it's got a little bit of a, excuse me, almost a sneeze. Ooh, it almost has a kind of stream of consciousness kind of feeling, because it's like he sees something else and he kind of tells you a little bit of a story about that, but then he hops back on his journey of the day. So it's interesting how this one comes about.
He talks about the turtle, whom he's named Frank. And he says, "Someday, I hope Frank looks forward to these little smidgens of time that we share. Me and Frank, we're in this together after all." I just love how the narrator looks at life. He's got a dog named Wednesday, and a turtle named Frank, and...
Mention how the real pictures are throughout.
Right, and there are real pictures interspersed with the illustration. So here's the drawing of the sunflower. Here's the actual sunflower. So when you're telling your story, you might start with this, but it ends up being this, because this is your story, your view, how you see things unfold around you.
There again, I like that it's got multiple ways that they're showing these ideas. I love the incorporation of the Polaroid type picture along with the illustrations. Okay, Peter Reynolds has a new one, and I love Peter Reynolds illustrations. They're just... it's so simple and just very appealing to me. This is Playing from the Heart, and it's a little piano, you see. And there's a piano in this house that this boy has grown up in that no one has touched for years. It's a family piano. And then all of a sudden, Raj starts clinking on the keys, and he can't even reach the pedals yet, but he starts making noises and they sound good. His father is kind of surprised that he's never had lessons, he's never touched the piano before, but he is making pleasing sounds. Eventually he can touch the pedals, and I love the line in there. He says he realizes that when he can touch that sustain pedal, that the notes flowed together, and he noticed that he could mix the notes the same way he mixes his watercolors. And so that's a beautiful line to me. His father gets him a piano teacher just to nurture him, and he begins to play and make beautiful music. But then one day Raj stops. It says he gets tired. He gets tired even just looking at the piano, and he closes the lid and goes off. Apparently goes to school, he goes to work in the city. And Dad kind of realizes it's so quiet at the house now without Raj there playing the piano. Well, get your Kleenexes out, because now Dad is sick. And Raj says, "Tell my father I'm coming home." And of course, Raj says, "Dad, is there anything I can do to make you feel better?" And of course, Dad is going to say, "Will you play a song for me?" And so Raj starts playing the typical ones that he learned or whatever. And Dad says, "No, not that one. The one that doesn't have a name." And so he wanted the one that he played by heart. One he made up on his own, and that's what he did, and that's where the title Playing from the Heart comes from. So, and that's just beautiful.
I've got a couple middle grade novels coming up now, and this is the new Kate DiCamillo, and that should be all I have to tell you, quite frankly. This is RAYMIE Nightingale. It's the story of three girls. RAYMIE is our main character and our narrator, but she is accompanied by Louisiana Elefante, I love that name, and Beverly Topinski, and they're all taking twirling lessons because RAYMIE especially wants to win the Little Miss Central Florida tire competition, because she is sure if she does that, her father, who has run away with a dental hygienist, We'll see that she's famous and come back to the family, and it will be intact again. Well, all three girls have a reason for wanting to take these lessons and for wanting to win Miss Central Florida tire contest. And how their stories kind of intertwine and connect is typical, wonderful Kate DiCamillo. This is another one that it's just so heartfelt. You feel like you know these girls. You feel like you could be friends with them if only you walked up to them when they were taking those twirling lessons. It's just strong voice, strong character, and lots of little unexpected twists, lots of eccentric people that come and go through the story.
I still have another picture book, Chuck and Woodchuck, by Cece Bell, the author of El Defo. Show and tell. Our main character, the one who is telling the story, is a little girl in the class, and she brings a ukulele and talks about the ukulele and tells everything about it except for how to play it, because she doesn't know how to play it. Well, Chuck brings his woodchuck, and everybody thinks he's just going to stand there, but then he doesn't. He starts doing everything and playing with all of the things that people brought for show and tell. And the teacher decides he is such a hit that he should come back every day. Well, what the woodchuck ends up doing is really being the bridge between Chuck and our main character, and building and I guess the bridge between them so they can then be friends. And it's a quirky story. It's you know, an outrageous story, but it's a great friendship story.
And it's a great way to show kids the connection between an extended picture book, which this is, and those early graphic novels that they can then go look at, you know, the baby mouse and stuff. So it's a bridge as well. And I love the illustrations in this one. They're just kind of cartoon-like, and yet, you know, they're very heartfelt. You get to know an awful lot about the characters from the illustrations, the way that Cece's drawn them. Just absolutely wonderful. This is Greg Neary. He goes by G. Neary, but I do know his name is Greg because we served on the National Book Award Committee together. I've been a huge fan of his for a long time. This is TRU NELLE. Already garnered several starred reviews. It is based on the childhood friendship of Truman Capote and Harper Lee. So for those of you who have some interest in that, who know about that rather unusual friendship, the two of them growing up, who were very different kind of people when you get down to it. This is an incredible story of friendship. Two people who really didn't fit in much within their own communities, but who found in one another kindred spirits. I would absolutely suggest this for middle grade kids who eventually will go on to read To Kill a Mockingbird, and you never know, maybe eventually they'll go on to read In Cold Blood as well, although that's kind of a scary book, and best left to adulthood, believe me.
True crime.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just an exquisite book, and for me particularly, who knew who saw Truman Capote in popular culture, in media all the time. He was such a stereotype. This makes him much more of a human. You get to see what his childhood was like, and maybe it accounts a little bit for how he became the way he was. But the story of the friendship is just absolutely wonderful. TRU NELLE by G. Neary.
Speaking of In Cold Blood, that movie
scared
me to death. Whew. Okay, the last two books I have are truly YA. I have a picture of this because I read it on e-book. 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tillie Colt. This story spans many years, from the time the characters are 5 years old until they're high school and beyond. Friendship, true friendship, between a young boy who moved with his family from Norway to Georgia. The little boy had long blonde hair. He from Norway. And when the little girl, Poppy, from next door sees that he's moving in, she asks where he's from, and she remembers her grandma reading her stories about people from Norway. And she goes, "Are you a Viking?" And so then from then on, he is her Viking. And they are glued to each other from then on. At 8 years old, they had devastation. Poppy loses her grandmother, and her grandmother gives her a task and gives her a jar with 1,000 pink hearts in it. And what she has to do is, when she finds her soulmate, the one she wants to spend the rest of her life with, she is supposed to then keep track of 1,000 of those boy kisses with that soulmate. And so she can remember them in her old age, and then tell her grandkids about the wonderful relationship she had with her soulmate. And when she tells Rune, it's Rune, anyway, I can't say it with the Norwegian accent like somebody else did. It's R-U-N-E, Rune, but it's Rune something. When she tells him this, he does not like the idea of her kissing other people, somebody else. And he said, I will be the one to kiss you. And she goes, well, that's forever. That's 1,000 kisses. And he said, that's right. I will be the only one to kiss you. And that she gets her first kiss that day. And from then on, it goes on throughout their career, their childhood, into high school. And then at 15, Rune and his family have to move back to Norway. And they're heartbroken. And once he's there for a couple of months, they talk on the phone every day, and all of a sudden they lose contact. She stops returning phone calls, won't answer emails, won't video call, and he has no idea why she's dropped off. Nobody will tell them anything except for the family moved away. They didn't even stay in town. And 2 years it's like that, until his dad is transferred back to the same house, because they never sold it because they were going to come back. And 2 years later, so 17 years old, he comes back and they see each other for the first time, because Poppy has also recently moved back to town. And through their interactions, which is very hard at first because they're both heartbroken, you find out what happened to Poppy and why she moved away and why she cut off contact. This is a book that you will need to have an entire box of Kleenex with you, because you will cry throughout. It's heartbreaking, but also makes your heart feel so full.
Finally for me is Long Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the sequel to The Fixer, and I read The Fixer a while ago, I guess when it first came out. This is the sequel. It will be out in June, and Tessa's back. And if you haven't read the first book, by the way, this one, it can stand alone. You don't have to have all the background. It's filled in for you. But Tess is what's known as a fixer, and so is the woman she has always thought is her aunt, but comes to discover is really her mother. And that happens, of course, in the first book, but it's in here too. Tess is somebody that you go to if you've got a problem, and she will take care of it for you. And Tess is in high school. She's a senior. It's time for the Hardwick School student council elections, and one of Tess's acquaintances comes to her and says, you will get me elected as student council president. You owe me a favor. Tess says, I will do that. But what Tess doesn't really think is going to happen, what she doesn't suspect in advance, is that there's going to be all kinds of complications along the way. What we have here is not just your typical high school council, student council election. You've got the assassination attempt on the President of the United States, and Tess is pulled into that. You've got the kidnapping of all the important people who go to Hardwick School, and it is a school where all of the children of the President and Congress and Senate and the wealthy people all attend this school. So you've got a kidnapping that goes on. You've still got an unsolved mystery from the first book of a murder of a Supreme Court justice. So you've got all this kind of playing in and out. There are all kinds of twists and turns and red herrings. And even though several situations are solved in this, there are still enough mysteries left open. I'm sure there's going to be a third book. This is a winning combination. It is for those kids that grew up on Nancy Drew but want something a little bit meatier now that they're older. The Fixer, Long Game, these are the books for them.
Jennifer Lynn Barnes is really a nice girl. Woman. She's young though. She's young. She has had quite a career already in as an author. There's a lot of old stuff that you could go back and find her new, stuff when she was first starting. So definitely check her out, because her stuff is I've liked a lot of her early stuff.
She's got the Raised by Wolves series, the
Mm-hmm.
Natural series. She's also got a doctorate from Yale University in psychology and writing.
And
she's
she
also
teaches,
a smart cookie.
And she teaches
Yeah.
at OU in Norman, Oklahoma. So that's where I got my degree. So I love that she's there. Yeah. Anyway, okay, my last one is a short story collection, which I am not a fan of short story collections, but this one I love. Slasher Girls and Monster Boys. It's horror, people. This is horror. These stories are creepy. Some of the stories that have been my favorite, I like the one by Carrie Ryan. Oh, it's wonderful. It's an Alice in Wonderland type thing. And I loved, and I cannot pronounce the name, but the person that selected these stories is Genevieve Tucholke. And
right.
her story in here is awesome as well. Wow. Definitely creepy. Creepy. There's blood, there's gore. So definitely high school, but so good. What I do like about these is at the end of every story, and I listen to the audio. So it's read by multiple authors. At the end of every story, it says, inspired by, and it tells you where they get it. So like this one said, inspired by Stephen King's Carrie and the 1997 film I Know What You Did Last Summer. And that was Genevieve Tucholke's book. Those two things inspired her story. I love it. They all give the inspiration.
And of course, since you've got some really well-known authors here, you've got Jonathan Maberry, Carrie Ryan, Nova Rensum, you've got Marie Lu, Leigh Bardugo, A.G. Howard. You can then, one of the things I love about story collections is you can tell kids, find something you like in here. If you like the story, chances are you're going to like the novels as well. So I tend to really love short stories because it's not a long commitment that you're making.
And you can skip around. You don't have to read every story.
Except I'm so bad about that. I start on page 1 and I go all the way
I
back
do too.
through, which you're not supposed to do, but I do nonetheless. I loved Slasher Girls and Monster Boys too, and I did listen to it in audio, and the narrations are wonderful.
They are.
But I kind of want to go back and reread some of them because they kind of go by quickly. We're going to talk about audiobooks by themselves in a future broadcast. And of course, we're anxious to hear, what do you want to hear more about? We've got some stuff coming up on nonfiction. We're definitely going to talk about that. But what else can we talk about that would be of interest and of value to you? So make sure that you contact us. The email's there. And let us know what you want to hear more about. And of course, we do hope that you'll share out these videos with others too. So thanks a lot, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.